Time now for a top story, and with the UN Security Council deadlocked over the Syrian crisis, the General Assembly is preparing this Friday to denounce Syria for unleashing heavy weaponry on the people of Aleppo and Damascus. The Assembly's vote has been overshadowed by the resignation of Special Envoy Kofi Annan after his peace proposals failed. As he announced his departure, the former UN chief was highly critical of what he called finger-pointing and name-calling in the Security Council. For more on all this, I'm joined by our international affairs editor, Annette Young. Hi, Annette. Mission Impossible was one of the phrases bandied about. Was a genuine political solution ever really a possibility?
Well, before I answer that, Chris, let's just take a listen to what Kofi Annan had to say at that press conference in announcing his resignation.
Without serious, purposeful and united international pressure, including from the powers of the region, it is impossible for me or anyone to compel the Syrian government in the first place, and also the opposition, to take the steps necessary to begin a political process.
Yes. Was there ever any genuine political will, Chris, to find a political solution?
He was pretty despondent.
He was, and I would say no, as would many people. And as one American analyst, Aaron David Miller, told the New York Times overnight, the bottom line was that it was DOA. It was dead on arrival, this whole concept. Nobody's surprised by his resignation, and many are wondering, why did it take so long, given the rising levels of violence and the fact that Assad so clearly was making it very clear that he wasn't going anywhere. Let's just very quickly take a listen to what the Syrian Opposition had to say in regards to Annan stepping down.
We tried all the time to convince the great powers that a political solution would never see the light of day. Now it's official. Now it's a death certificate. We must think of Kofi Annan's mission as dead.
But Chris, obviously the UN had to be seen to be doing something. The reality is, however, with the amount of blood that's been spilled on both sides, you were never going to get a negotiated settlement, and certainly there was not enough, pressure there, in terms of foreign intervention to basically say to Assad, OK, time for you to step down. And certainly the other big issue that's come out of this is the infighting within the Security Council, where you had Russia and China on one side, very much clearly blocking any move that they saw was an attempt to overthrow or bring about regime change. And then, of course, on the other side, you had the US, US, Britain and France, the three other permanent members of the body who wanted to do something stronger. So it was certainly a difficult situation for Mr. Annan.
And where on earth do we go next? We're watching these daily images of spiralling violence, the monitor mission powerless, really.
Absolutely. And I mean, the reality is we're dealing with a civil war. However, Ban Ki-moon, the UN chief, is saying that he's going to go and still try and find a successor to Kofi Annan. But with the Assad government now using fighter jets, helicopters, the rebels, of course, are fighting back. They've commandeered tanks. They've managed to seize anti-aircraft missiles. That just gives you some idea of the intensity of what's going there on the ground. The interesting thing too is the fact is the Assad regime have weapons that are normally used to fighting another state, not to be used on their own people. And this is the reason why, it's become such a bloody battle. Now, the UN observers on the ground are saying there's considerable build-up of military means in Aleppo, which is giving them reason to believe, as we all believe, that there's about to be a major battle there. And talking about those UN observers, I mean, they're in the midst of this 30-day extension to their mandate, which is going to expire on August 19th. Now, extending it would require passage of yet another resolution in the Security Council, and we know what is going to very much likely happen there. I mean, there's, in order for that to get through, they can't have a Russian or Chinese veto. And it's already been cut back. I mean, it's been cut back from 300 to now roughly around 115 monitors and 80 or so civilians. I think we can safely say that those observers' days on the ground are very much numbered.
Meanwhile, as we heard, the General Assembly preparing to denounce Syria. Given what you've been telling us about the diplomatic situation, what we all know about the divisions within the Security Council, frankly, why bother?
It really is a bit of that, but I think it's a reflection of the frustration within many sectors in the international community of this impasse that's been going on at the Security Council. Just to give you some idea of how much things are changing, I mean, the resolution initially at the beginning of the week was to give a vote of support for Annan in order for him to continue his mission. Well, we know what's happened there. And now the aim is to get as many of those 193 members, obviously not including Russia and China, to vote yes for a resolution which will be demanding that the Syrian army stop using this heavy weaponry, stop shelling and withdraw its troops back to the barracks. And it's also going to be taking a swipe at Moscow and Beijing for, by deploring the Security Council failure to act. Not to mention, of course, demanding that the Assad government, keep its chemical and biological weapons inside a warehouse and not use them. But again, as I say, it just gives you an indication of how much frustration there is on many levels as to what has happened within the Security Council.
Thanks very much, Nat. That's all we have time for on Top Story. Do stay tuned here on France 24. More news coming up very shortly.